Hello, BookTube. As you can see, I have a guest with me today. This is Sarah from the Bookish Knitter. Say hi to all my imaginary book.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about romance because we are both co-hosts of Autumn Amour, a month-long celebration of romance created by the Bookish Bryants. And my only worry is that the bog standard Zoom recording tier that I'm at stops at 40 minutes, and I'm not sure that we can talk that way.
We might struggle. We might struggle.
In case you are coming new to this little collaboration, Sarah and I routinely do videos of longer than 40 minutes.
The only way we can do this properly is if I come back down to Boston and we have a good, 4-hour.
Yes. Well, I'm always in favor of that. I'm not 100% sure that the fellow commuters on the Boston highways would appreciate that. They should probably have some sort of electronic warning on one of those boards.
Oh, stop.
The sweet and kind BookTube host on her channel, you see a different side of that person if an 18-wheel truck tries to cut into her lane without signaling.
There's a reason I tend to not record in the car.
I thought, sure, when an 18-wheeler gigantic truck tried to cut us off, and you mentioned a few things that the truck driver could do, I thought, sure, that the look on his face was rage. But when I looked up into his cabin, he was crying. No one had ever spoken to him quite that way before.
No one ever claimed that all Canadians are sweet and kind.
Oh, no. I think when I was in the middle of the highway at 60 miles an hour, suddenly sort of tentatively feeling for whether or not the door would open, I think that was the first time that you actually said to me, no one ever said that Canadians were all sweet and kind. But we want to talk about romance today. I can be the reigning queen of romance on BookTube. And I want to sort of interview you, if that's not too awkward.
Absolutely.
I want at least some broad framing questions, because a lot of people are coming to Autumn Amour never having read a romance before. That's one of the joys of these. The Bookish Bryants have started all of these genre-related little events, and that's one of the joys of them, is that you get to do that.
Absolutely.
So if we were to talk about Romance 101, if we would go down to just basics, the first question that I would want to know your take on is why romance of all the genres suffers the way it does from cultural condescension. Why is that? Even shoot 'em up, bug-eyed alien science fiction novels, even horror novels, don't get thought of this way. Is it all Fabio's fault?
No, because it's meant for women. It's women written for women. And I think it's an old sexist thing, and I hate to say it, but that's my personal opinion. It's not good enough. Because
it's not packaging. It's not the way the covers look. It's sexist.
And it's meant to appeal to women. So it's meant to be something that's lesser to a lot of other people. I could sit down and read a Western. I could sit down and read a shoot 'em up, any of those, and that would be fine. But a typical man reading a romance novel is going to be looked at completely differently. Sexism 101.
Wow.
My personal opinion.
I thought sure it was going to be something along the lines of packaging, but no.
Well, I mean, that goes into it too, but I think more than anything else, it's always been looked at. This is a genre for women, written by women. The housewife books,
Mm-hmm. So,
right?
I mean, to get off topic right away, would you think that maybe that is also the bedrock reason behind the kind of cultural snootiness of men knitting?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing? Mm-hmm. Oh man.
As a knitter, and my husband knits as well, and my niece said to him, Uncle Garrett, boys don't knit. And he says, yes, I do. We had to explain to her that the original people who knit were men. It was sailors on ships. Their wives couldn't send them home stockings. They had to mend their
own stuff. A lot of Patrick O'Brian readers of Patrick O'Brian's Aubrey and Matron novels are always struck by how the sailors are always doing their own needlework. They have to. There's nobody else.
It's the gender stereotypes. this is what women do, this is what, and we should all stay in our lane, but that's not the way it
I
goes.
had this same conversation with Harry Styles at last Venice Film Festival because he and I both decided, we pinky promised, that we would each wear a full-length, ankle-length skirt. And the press went wild. They had a field day. I'm still smarting from some of the comments. Actually, with it was only with Harry that they made sexist comments. With me, it was all about my varicose veins. Which he doesn't have yet.
We're proud of you, but could you cover it up just a little bit?
Yes. Yeah.
You're
You go, girl. But you.
You're scaring the children. Won't somebody think of the children?
Okay. So sexism, which maybe there are more men willing to fight against that in the 21st century than there were in the 20th century.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, 20 years ago, there's no way, but now you see it a lot more. You see a lot more men are reading romance and happily enjoying romance, which is great.
So that's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
But what about people who are now curious? If you had to define what a romance novel is, you've said before, it's a novel in which a romantic story is the prominent element of the plot, the driving element of the plot.
Absolutely.
It's as simple as that.
Yep. There has to be a happily ever after or a happy for now. I'll take a happy for now.
What does that mean? Explain that.
Okay. For example, I just read a novella, right? So the novella was a romance, of course, which always drives me crazy. Oh, they confess their undying love for each other on the last page. You met 50 pages ago. Let's not go there, right? However, in this book, they didn't do that. It was like, you know what? We've met. We really like each other. Let's give this a go. Let's see if we can make this work. Happy for now. There's got to be some sort of you don't see that as often, but I will take that as an ending as well in a romance. But 90% of the time, a romance has to have a happily ever after. If it doesn't, it's not a romance. Simple as that.
It becomes something else.
Absolutely. Yep. Could be a women's fiction, could be a genre fiction, could be something else.
So are there any prominent exceptions? So if that is a hard and fast rule, then that would put something like Gone with the Wind out
exactly
of the romance category.
It's not I've always said it's never a romance. That book's never been a romance. And I love that book, but it's not a romance.
You're not allowed to love it in the 21st century. You'll be like,
I don't care.
you'll
fabulous book.
You'll never influence in this town again.
I know, right? I shouldn't say that out loud, but I love that. I think it's a phenomenally written novel.
That is it. So you readers out there that are cautiously circling around this genre and not knowing whether or not it will work for you, that's it. That's all. It's just that. Where the romance plot drives the rest of the plots, and you have a happily ever after or happily for now. That's not all that intimidating. Right?
No, it's not. It's not. and maybe that's part of it too, is that it's not intimidating. And some people feel like, oh, I want to read a book that's going to challenge me, and this isn't going to challenge me. But maybe it will. Maybe it will challenge you to think a different way.
Right. That's another accusation, isn't it? That a romance often has hurled at it, is that it's fluff.
That's right.
I never quite know what to make of that. When in the 20th century, never in the 21st century, but in the 20th century, I had plenty of old reader friends who said, yeah, it's fluff. Everything in it is predictable. The characters are all one-dimensional. You know what's going to happen ahead of time. It goes on a template. And I would say to them, so those 200 Louis L'Amours behind you, they are all groundbreaking, every single one of them? They never had a comeback.
Exactly. Every James Bond book ever written,
So one of your points would be that there's nothing to worry about, that something might be formulaic.
Stuff is, let's be realistic. Yes, there's like plot points in romance that you need to hit as a romance writer. I've been trying to write my own book, so I've been studying a lot on, how a book is laid out, right? And there are plot points. You get the meet cute, as they call it. And then you get like the first inciting incident. Then there's always that dark moment where the couple is going to break up, never to speak again. And then they get back. So yes, it is formulaic, but that's part of the joy, is that you know what you're getting into. You know exactly what you're about to sit down and read. And it just so happens that this character's an architect and this guy's a plumber. or she's a princess and he's a pauper, or whatever. That's what changes it and makes it great. But the story itself, yeah, they can be formulaic.
If you sit down and you know what you're going to get, you know what the formula is going to be, you're freer to concentrate on how well it's done, right? I mean,
that's the
you'd be the first
genius of
person
category.
right?
Absolutely. You know,
You'd
if
be
I
the
pick
first
up an
person to
intrigue
admit that
novel,
there are bad
I
ones,
know.
right?
Exactly. Oh, there are plenty of, believe me, I've read some. And I will tell you if it's no good.
Yes, yes, yes. Sarah is the world's biggest fan of category romances, especially Harlequin category romances. But on her channel, you won't need any help figuring out whether or not she has something to criticize about a book. My favorite is always what I consider to be your fourth grade teacher voice. You have different voices for different kinds of criticism, but every once in a while, an author will make a character do something so dumb that you will shift into fourth grade teacher mode and say, "This again? What have we learned?" Like, oh. If you're an author and you hear that, oh my. If Sarah says, "What have we learned?"
That's right.
that's very bad. But this ties in the idea of the categories, and maybe even a certain amount of predictability ties in with a Twitter conversation that you saw, same as I did. The romance author Tessa Dare, who's a wonderful person, a fantastic writer. I've got a dozen books of hers behind me on this romance bookcase. She started a conversation on Twitter about how exhausting and unrealistic it must be for so many authors in so many other genres to have to recreate the wheel every single time they write a book. And she got pushback for that. She had people in the comments to that tweet saying, "So what you're saying is you write drivel."
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
I saw those comments and I think I told you, I wanted to tell each one of them, try it yourself.
Exactly.
If you think it's so easy, if you think she's just giving away the game of romance writing, try doing it yourself.
Yeah, and see what happens.
Yeah, see if you get her readership. There are plenty of romance authors out there who do the same patterns, the same categories she does. They don't have her readership.
Yep. She's Tessa freaking Dare.
Yes. Yes.
I just.
It reminds me of that. What was that? There was a Tempest in a Teapot about 5 years ago. Some author ripped off, plagiarized a gigantic plot element from Nora Roberts.
Yes.
Story, and when she was caught
yes, I remember. I can't remember the author.
Was, well, who's Nora Roberts? The whole world came down on her like it's not a break. So many people, even people who didn't read romance novels, were in her.
I know, we're like, yeah, right. Like,
if you're gonna take a shot at somebody, don't take a shot at Nora Roberts. So, okay, so let's say you have, because I have to constantly pull us away from digressions, or we will be in the middle
here all day.
Let's say you have that person X out there, who, let's say, is a man, never read a romance, but is no longer just dyed in the wool reflexively against it. So a man who has been listening during the 21st century, who's paid attention enough to realize, thanks to social media, we're all looking at each other all the time. So you might as well do what you want.
Yeah.
You might as well do what you want.
Yep.
Let's say you have a man like that. What would you tell him about romance?
Oh,
if
just
pick someone up
and try it. Like, it has changed so much. It really.
You think a person like that has an idea of romance?
Oh my God, there is.
Years ago.
Yeah, it's different now. There's no way. There's certain books now that I would absolutely recommend to like men to say, like, you might want to actually try this one because you might like this one for certain reasons, right? Like,
are there categories that you could name?
Oh, for category romance, I would say, like,
category romance. What characteristics?
Not generalizing, but I find typically like male readers come from a place where they read, like, I think about my dad and my brother who read the sniper novels or the Hunt for Red October, or those kind of things, right? To maybe try like a Harlequin intrigue or a romantic suspense, where you're getting that very suspenseful element, but you're also getting this love story. But the thing is that's funny is that James, like, if I think about James Bond, he always got the girl, always. So what difference is it between that and a romance? It's, he didn't stay with her. That's the difference.
He didn't
But
stay with her, and
there
she
was
was
still
also,
that element there.
she was a piece of luggage. That's
Precisely. It
yeah.
was a little bit different. But what I'm saying is that there's still that romantic or sexual element within the story. And that's like very much a shoot 'em up man's kind of thing, right? And if you try the Harlequin romantic suspense line, they are always more romance driven than action driven, but the action in those books are phenomenal. Car chases, bombs, shootings, like and I'm not trying to generalize that that's something that only men like, because I love those books, but that might be a place to start. Don't start with your Fabio bodice ripper cover. Try something else.
How well do you think those old, I'm not just Fabio, I don't mean to pick on him, but how
No, I know.
those old, like Kathleen Woodiwiss or Joanna Lindsay, how well do those older novels age?
Don't think very well.
No, I read Kathleen Woodiwiss, maybe not, but I read an old Joanna Lindsay just a couple of weeks ago and thought, no, I mean, your talent as an author is obvious, but this, I kept thinking over and over again, times have changed.
Yes.
There isn't a woman
very,
in the
very
world
much
who
so.
would find this satisfying as a romance.
Yeah. There was a big trope back then of like capture and consent. Consent was huge back then. The lack of.
It went out the window.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big
books was that would not only be not an issue in the book, but that the woman wouldn't want it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's why they don't stand up to today. That's the biggest reason.
Are there romance authors who did well in those tropes that have changed? Joanna Lindsay isn't still writing books, right? I'm assuming.
I don't think so.
Another one.
Heather Graham. Heather Graham used to write. She wrote that trilogy, the North. She made her main character a slave owner. And One More Blue or One More Gray. I have it on my shelf. I haven't read it yet.
Oh, One More Gray. I think it was One More Gray.
It was bad. I mean, that to have that as your protagonist, but she has since gone on and written amazing things. And, she's grown as an author.
Right.
She was writing for the time, right? That's what everybody was writing back then. So that's what you did. Now times have changed.
Yes. Which would explain why we don't see Native American romances anymore.
Correct.
Because those weren't almost all of those based on capture?
Correct. Yeah.
And now it would also be cultural appropriation, right? You wouldn't be able to write.
Well, the other thing I found out, because I was lucky enough to interview the editor for the Harlequin historical line last year on the podcast that I used to do with Bree, and she explained that the Harlequin historicals are not as wanted in North America. We here don't care about the historicals as much as they do in the UK. So that's why they stopped publishing the Western line for Harlequin, like the Harlequin historical Westerns. They stopped doing that because UK audiences don't care about the American West, which I found fascinating.
But by the same token, they don't publish them at all in America. So Americans don't care at all about history?
No, you can't buy them on shelf. You can buy them off of Amazon. You can buy them from the Harlequin website, but you cannot buy them on in-store shelves, which makes me sad because I love the historical line. I love them.
Yeah, me too. I used to love the older historicals that had the original cover artwork, not only on the front, but also on the back. You get different illustrations.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Now that
right, and then with the
yes.
Yeah.
Whereas that would be too expensive to do now, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%.
Aren't the Harlequin category romances in every single category? Aren't they all photo covers now?
I think so. Yes, absolutely.
Actually, now that I think about it, aren't all romances photo covers now? I don't think
except for the ones that are like the cartoonish drawing. Yeah, I know. Collective eye roll from the audience.
I don't understand how a cover trend can be so universally unpopular and yet become a trend. How does that happen? How does that happen? I mean, nobody took dirigibles after the Hindenburg. Why is it that every single person I talk to hates that trend and yet it's a trend?
Yep. Yeah, they're horrible.
for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you just have to look at any romance cover. They're all these same, they are identical. That one, at least the people on the cover have faces. What about the
True
one
enough.
where they're cartoon covers and the people don't have faces?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And I'm not knocking self-published, but a lot of self-published, I find that that's the case. They tend to do that. I don't know why, but it's a thing.
I'm actually trying to remember the last time I saw a romance cover that had original artwork instead of a photograph. It's been a long time.
Oh,
Sometimes background.
yeah. Wouldn't that be lovely?
I guess it's too expensive. Although I can't help but think that, you know, on Fiverr or Etsy, there are probably hundreds of people who would do it for very little money.
Absolutely.
Just for the exposure.
Absolutely, 100%.
But okay, so getting back to this, to pull us away from the digression.
Tangent.
Getting back to this hypothetical person
Mhm.
is looking for romance 101. Okay, so you have pointed that person, let's say him, towards category romances that might be heavy on the non-romantic elements of the plot. On plot, so there's a romance element, but there are also other elements. Like in some of the romances behind me, the romance element is virtually the only thing in the book. It's
Correct.
and are there any romances where there aren't any dark parts, no inciting incidents? Are there any romance novels about people who are just, this is all about finding romance, right? There are no romance novels about people who married their high school sweetheart and just stayed that way, happy that whole time.
Well, no, you are actually seeing now a lot of romances where it's the couple's married and then something happens and they split up, and literally it's them getting back together again, which is,
same people.
You know, yeah, which I love, because anyone who's been married, I mean, Steve, you've done it 87 times, you know, it doesn't end at the wedding. The hard part is afterwards.
Yes. That's why for a minute there, when you were describing that, I got all excited because I thought maybe the person who's got married 8 times would get married to someone different.
There you go.
Big mistake that I have made every single time. So when you said they married the same person, I thought, oh my God, that's your mistake right there.
But like, I joke about it because I think, you know, if you split up with your spouse and now you're getting back together, I'm like, that's a lot of pressure on the rest of the family. Like, do you invite them all to the second wedding? Do they have to bring a gift? What's the situation? But no, you're seeing that a lot more now with couples that, you know, maybe they married young, maybe married for the wrong reason when they were younger, and they inevitably split up for whatever reason. And you're seeing it a lot more now with them getting back together again and finding each other as adults, like as people who've changed and matured.
But there would still be limits to such a thing, right? No one would write, what is that called? A second chance romance?
It's a second chance romance, yeah.
No one would write a second chance romance in which the thing that broke them up was that he hit her.
No, exactly.
Right,
It would never be something like that. No.
Could it be infidelity?
I'm trying to think if I've read one that involved that, and I don't think so. Not that I've read. Because again, now you're putting mistrust in one of your protagonists, and leopards don't change their spots. And to a lot of people, a lot of romance readers, and I am one of them, cheating or infidelity is a hard pass. If that comes up in the book, you're done. I have no interest in reading this anymore.
So what about the whole sub-genre romance writing that doesn't have any fidelity at all? It's just hookup culture on steroids. Would you consider that to be just smut?
I hate to label it as such because I know there's a lot of people who love it, and I would never downplay anybody, but that's what it is. It's not a love story. It's a lust story as far as I'm concerned.
A lust story, exactly.
That's all it is.
People on Kindle independent publishing that make a very good living generating.
Oh no, and that's great. You know, that good for them. But one of my favorite lines from Harlequin is the heartwarming line, and it's the one that actually has no adult content in it. Like, there's no sexual at all, and it's just the emotional relationship. And sometimes that's just so much more satisfying than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, or the old style Regency romances where it's the sparring.
Yes.
The back and forth. It's not so much the love. It's the sparring, which has deep roots, right? I mean, not just Pride and Prejudice, but also Much Ado About Nothing. I mean, you've got,
Yep.
that goes back a long way, except in
Mhm.
Shakespeare, the sparring tends to end with the woman being humbled into a slave.
Or killed, or murdered, or
killed.
something.
Whereas in Pride and Prejudice, not quite so much.
Not so drastic.
So you take that man, but once again,
Mhm.
pull us away from that question. But you take that man, you've given him a tip of a kind of romance that will work, that might work. But would you still advise patience? He's not going to get it on one try. It's a genre, right? Like
No,
any other,
no, try a couple of them.
it requires you to
Right.
learn how to understand it, how to like it.
Absolutely.
It did for me
Absolutely.
anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I got such a kick out of, I'm going to call him out. I don't know if he's going to ever watch this. Criminale. When he hauled all those Harlequin NASCAR romances, my heart was so happy. I'm like, I love them. And he's been enjoying them. And I'm like, see, these are
Yep.
not what people think they are. They're
Nope.
not all perfect. I have read duds, but a lot of them are so good.
It's just one quick step. If he's reading a
I know.
NASCAR romance and loving it.
Slippery slope, my friend.
So who were the first romance authors that got you?
My holy trinity, as I call them, Susan Wiggs, Cheryl Woods, and Susan Mallory were the first three that I read. And they weren't category when I was reading them. I didn't pick up category until a few years after that, but they were the first three that I really started reading. And they wrote very similar, these like small town romances, big families, that kind of thing, which really appealed to me. And they were just great books. And I'm like, wow, these are fantastic. And then I started branching out and reading all kinds of other things. Love them. Still read their stuff. Still love their stuff.
Diehard romance readers must find it so hard to understand people who read books where a happy ending is not guaranteed, or where an unhappy ending is guaranteed. That is such an incredible joy to the genre.
Mhm.
I don't know why people would look down on that.
No, they're just enjoyable. Like, how can you diss something that's enjoyable? You know, like.
And the point that Tessa Dare's defenders were making in that Twitter thread was that they are enjoyable, they are category driven, they have certain archetypes that every writer has to follow, but that doesn't mean every writer can do it well.
Mm-mm.
And you start to notice those differences, right? When you
do.
I remember the first time that I was reading romances for a while, and I was thinking, all right, this is a brand new world. Then I read a Regency romance by Mary Bailo.
Oh, yes.
I thought, okay, I've read 6 of these things, and now I'm reading one that's much, much better than the others. It's the exact same thing. You won't find anything more formulaic than an old Regency romance. It was the exact same thing, but it was so much better than the other versions that I'd done. Who was another one? Susan Enoch?
Yes.
Susan Enoch. I thought her books were just noticeably better than.
Yep. I mean, I at the time I had just started reading historicals, and my aunt read all the ones that, you know, the Fabio covers, the ones that we're all familiar with from back in the day. And I remember reading them going, well, I don't think these are for me. And then I picked up The Duke and I by Julia Quinn, and I went, all bets are off.
Oh my.
This is it. That was the turning
Duke and
point
I
for
is
me.
such a great book.
Bridgerton.
Is Julia Quinn still writing? Is she still with us?
Oh yeah. She's still writing.
So it must have been the ultimate vindication for you to see the success of Bridgerton.
Mm-hmm. And now every book that you pick up, every new historical release, it says Bridgerton meets blah blah blah. Like they're all, and I'm like, okay, can we get off this train now? But yeah, no, Bridgerton. I have my issues with the show, but that's neither here nor there. It was great on its own. The books are great on their own. They're two separate things. But it's still great to see.
I heard a lot of book snobs say that the success of Bridgerton was largely due to the success of Downton Abbey and didn't really have anything to do with romance readers.
No.
You're nuts. You're absolutely nuts. If you're willing to follow your snobbery that far,
yeah,
romance readers that made that a success.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
So could it happen again?
With like another series? Oh, sure.
Like
If they
contemporary
pick the right one. Oh, I would love to see it with contemporary.
Wouldn't that be
I mean, I know that Netflix has done Virgin River by Robin Carr, and they've done the Sweet Magnolia series by Cheryl Woods. But I would like to see something a little spicier, just to see how it would portray. Like Bridgerton was, season 1 was spicy. Season 2 was emotion out the wazoo, which was so well done. But I would like to see it with a more contemporary series, a little spicier.
For purely artistic, impersonal reasons, I would like to see the Black Dagger Brotherhood.
Yes, I'm sure a lot of people would. Yeah. I can't imagine why, Steve.
I'd be happy to be involved in the casting. If anybody has any question marks.
I was personally thinking any series by Maisie Yates that involves cowboys.
And you see, that's another perfect example of what I'm talking about. You have cowboy romances everywhere, and then you have Maisie Yates.
Yeah.
Right. Who is just they're just much better. They're just, and who's the other contemporary Western romance writer who's also reliably BJ Daniels.
Yes.
Reliably.
Oh, BJ Daniels, amazing.
You look at two people like that and you think, okay, well, if every contemporary Western romance that I read was this good, they'd all be this good. They're not.
Right? No, they're not.
Which could be maybe the thing we say to this guy, our hypothetical person, is that once you start to read this stuff, you're going to notice that it's not all people just ticking boxes. There's talent here as well as in Tom Clancy and type books or anything else. It is entirely possible, you might want to say to that guy, it's entirely possible to read a bad Western.
Oh God, yes.
Well, then we've covered him. He should be okay, right?
Yes, I think so.
He should be all right.
I think so.
How are you liking Autumn Amour so far?
I'm enjoying it. I was reading a lot of cozy mysteries over the last few months, and I'm so happy to be delving back into romance because I've missed it a lot. Yeah, I didn't realize how much I missed it. Yours
was all about cozy mysteries and a piece of nonfiction, I think, wanted in there.
Yeah, I did.
What's going on here?
I like it, but you know,
I'm waiting for a big yellow lab to lumber into the room. What happened to Sarah's channel?
But no, I have read like some really, really good ones lately. I have to shout out one because I keep talking about this book. The One Night with the Maverick by Melissa Sennett, which is a Harlequin special edition. And the reason I loved it so much is because it didn't have the one true love trope, which I hate the passion. Where I was married before and we split up or he died and I actually hated him, but I love you. I didn't love him nearly as much as I love you. Do you know what I mean? That trope of there can only ever be one person.
Yeah.
Which irks me so much. But this book, his wife died of cancer and he still admitted to loving her and loving his, and it was realistic.
It's the other kind of that I know it is irksome because you're halfway through the book and you want to yell at the person. Didn't you stand at an altar? Didn't you was that you want a do-over for that now?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that was, I brought up Virgin River earlier, but it's because I was thinking about that book because in that first book in Virgin River, her husband died. He was killed in something at work. And so she's driving to Virgin River and, I miss him. I love him. I'm grieving. I've been grieving for a year. And then she shows up in Virgin River, meets the hot guy behind the bar. And all of a sudden, husband who? Suddenly, no, we really weren't getting along that well, or we were fighting quite a bit. And it just really set me off. I'm like, no, thank you.
One thing that I read for Autumn Amour that has been sticking with me is this.
Jill Shalvis.
I thought that you could maybe remind me. There was a booktuber 10 years ago the main focus of her channel was on audiobooks. And she was
Jen loves audiobooks.
Jen loves audiobooks. That's right. Yes. She was a huge Jill Shalvis fan.
Yes.
That was when I sold Jill Shalvis, stalked her in the shelves forever and ever, but I'd never thought to read her until that channel. She doesn't make videos anymore, right?
No, she doesn't, unfortunately. No. But I've been lucky enough to interview Jill Shalvis twice. She is a delight. But that series, the Heartbreaker Bay series, is
Heartbreaker
one of
Bay
my
series.
favorites.
They're
Yes.
fantastic.
Yep.
When I was reading this, I was remembering an earlier Jill Shalvis that I'm now, it's buried behind me somewhere. All I can remember now is the cover. A guy holding a girl on the hood of his truck. I think it was Room to
Oh, it was part of that series, but it's a Christmas book.
It is part of the Heartbreaker Bay series.
I think
I
so.
thought so, because this parts of this
up.
thing were reminding me of that. I wonder if it's in here.
Have you read her Animal Magnetism series, Steve? It centers around a vet's clinic.
No.
Yes. Yes, you will love it. As the dog person that you are, read Animal Magnetism. It's like a 6-book series. You will love it.
I've got a dog staring at me.
Yeah, probably.
She's quite upset because when I'm on a chair, she can't be with me. She has to just cross the room. It was necessary in order to get the romance background.
There you go. Yeah.
But I mean, we don't have a retail bookstore in Boston anymore. So anything that I get, I would have to get online.
Yeah.
Don't have a retail bookstore, and it is a hike to. There's a little used bookstore that really concentrates on romances. Mm-hmm. It's not in this neck.
That's the one that we went to, isn't it?
Yes, the one that we went to when you were here. Yes, I would go back there every week if. Yeah,
I'll come down in the spring for a visit. We'll make a pilgrimage.
That's right. We used your car to get out there.
That's right. That's where I scared 6 of your 9 lives.
I think I bought like $100 worth of books.
Yes, you did.
We just piled them up on the counter at the front.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that during that visit, either one of us strayed much beyond romance. Usually when
I don't think so.
I go everywhere. But I figure finally I'm with someone where I don't have to make any excuses. I can
exactly. No, I'm here for her. This is all for her.
That's the book rack. Right. That's the book rack over in Arlington, which is a hike for me.
Yeah.
So you'll have to come and visit. We can do a lot.
I will. No, in all honesty, I'm making plans to come down in the spring. I want to come back.
Yeah, I'm trying to get people to come and visit, but I smell.
He's fine, guys. He's not going to hurt you, I swear. And Frida's a delight.
Oh, Frida is a delight. Yes, indeed. That is a real selling point. She is even cuter in person than she is.
It's true. And I'm not a dog person, and it's true.
Adorable. She's so friendly to strangers. But Zoom is telling me that we're almost out of time.
I know.
Well, let's get on our co-host to do a live stream.
Yes.
With multiple hosts that we can talk over and and edge out of the camera.
Exactly.
Let's do an Autumn More live stream. We really should do that.
Absolutely.
I'll drop a hint to the Bookish Bryants, see what they say.
Sounds good.
And next time we'll talk about a specific kind of romance.
Yes.
Next time you and
we'll
I
set this up again.
Now that we've done 101,